You can't study modernity and not study Napoleon. He literally did leave his mark upon this age, making him great. Perhaps not good, but great. Well, let me give you a little bit of his background and a little bit of some of his initial biography. He was born on August 15th in the year 1769. Which is actually the same year that his most famous rival, Arthur Wellington, was born. It was also the year that some of his great rivals within France itself, such as François Chateaubriand and also Madame de Staël, were both born in that year as well. It was also during this time, for example, that the famous Romantic poets Wordsworth and Coleridge were born, as well as the great composer Beethoven. So he's in incredible company here in terms of some huge figures in the history of Europe and of the West. He also, curiously, was born not in France. He was born on the Mediterranean island of Corsica, which had just recently come into French possession. This is one of the curious things about Napoleon. He wasn't actually French. He was Corsican. In fact, Corsica was a bit of a wild island, about the size of the state of Vermont. It was something that was called simply la maquis by the French, which meant that it was filled with guerrillas. That is, guerrillas in terms of these fighters who kind of occupy the hills and pop out to ambush unsuspecting soldiers and then pop back into their caves wherever they were hiding. In fact, Corsica was rather unwanted. It was held twice by the British, who tried to get rid of it as quickly as possible. It was held partly by the Genoese of Italy, who ultimately sold it to France for a ridiculously small amount of money. It was just actually sold for a few francs, basically, because the Genoese did not want it. But the French at this time, they weren't yet revolutionary, but they were still under the reign of Louis XVI, but still it was seen as, here's new land for us. Surely this has to be a good thing. Shortly after France took over Corsica, buying it from the Genoese, a Corsican native named Pascal Paoli led a revolution and a resistance to the reign of France. Curiously, he himself, who was a bit of a revolutionary with Enlightenment ideals and revolutionary tactics and techniques, would be someone who would support the French Revolution when it initially came to the island. He was also someone who knew the Bonaparte family, a family of 8. Napoleon was actually the second oldest of this family, and his father actually participated in the revolutions of the Corsicans and later in the French Revolution as well. So that's kind of how Napoleon cut his teeth. He cut his teeth in terms of a family that was fighting for independence, was fighting for these ideals of enlightenment, and so forth. He also, for example, came from a family that did not exactly have the greatest of morals. His mother was known for her affairs with other men, often to gain certain positions of influence or to gain something for her children or even for her husband. So he didn't actually come from a family that had these close or healthy relationships. That's why his siblings looked to Napoleon when he came to power over Europe to be kind of their own sugar daddy, if you will, who would give them things like positions of power throughout Europe, which he did, often at much cost to his own sanity.